Shamps and Giggles. History, news, views, and reviews from a black perspective. Shamps and Giggles back for 2024. Oh my
very,
lord.
very, very interesting subject. Study. You have got to study. Now, of course, you can say, what do you study? Because if you're spending all your time TikTok, I mean, come on now. You know what I mean? TikTok is everybody and anybody putting anything on. How many times, Leisha, Keith, have we got to fact check the stuff that comes across the waves on the TikToks and all the rest of it?
Yeah.
So it's just not true sometimes. It's just like, it's just like made up. What I love about the group here is a group of us, different people, experience. There's a lot of experience in the room. So when we hear something, I know like Pinky just hears something, say, no, foolish. I don't know that. So, you know what? Something just don't sound right. We do that all the time. You can pick apart these things. Like when that young lad put on his TikTok about his dad come back from the Caribbean and they want his uncle in it or something like that. They won't let him in the house. Man, we had that conversation up here in that bad boy. We picked that apart in a minute. Foolishness. It was just bare foolishness. His uncle who put his heart and soul in. Within a week, that video was taken down. At least you use your hands up, Tyler Tiggs. You have got to study.
Yeah, we identified immediately that the granddad went back to the Caribbean, enjoyed his life, picked up a woman and came back.
With her. And
With
she was standing in the doorway. Meanwhile, the mother who was sick in the house.
Yeah.
Right?
Went back to the Caribbean and dragged back his piece back to England and then used his grandson to accuse the son, the uncle, that he'd taken over the house.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the son had been there looking after his mother. All the years while Man was out in the Caribbean, living it up, living it large, doing his thing.
Brought back a new model. He brought back a new model.
Brought back the new model.
Yeah, new younger model.
Yeah. So study is important. What you study is important. Also, who you identify. Your environment is very important. If I was to give the young people them a book to study, I would say go to the good books then. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki. Rich Dad, Poor. Very good book. Gives you a very good understanding of life, of work, of purpose. And the other one I would say is now there's two actually. Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill is also a very good book. Gives a lot of understanding. And then there's another one, Jack Canfield.
That's a fantastic book.
Yeah. There's another one, Jack Canfield.
Yeah.
What's it? Success Principles: How to Get from Where You Are to Where You're Going. See, it's all in the book. And there's so many. There's so many. Bob Proctor, another one. Bob Proctor, very intelligent guy. I mean, good Lord. He just recently died, but for his videos are all over the place on YouTube. A man come from poverty, turned his life around, and has preached how to do it. Got an organization, should cost a chunk of change to get on board, but they get results. There's so many that you want. You got to study the interesting stuff. You can't be just. And I've seen the kids do it. They're just on TikTok, aimlessly. Whatever comes up on the feed. Who does that? You got to be specific. I can give you so many examples. Focus. That's an analogy. Follow one course until successful. You look at the youth, they're doing this, they're doing that. No. Do something. Jeff started off in comedy, Mr. Schumann. Long time when it was hard for black people to even get a foot in the door. It was hard, man. They were struggling. They're still struggling now, but they're staying on track. Look at Rudy Liquid, staying on track, putting the pathway so the youth them can follow. And now we got who? Mo Gilligan. If the likes of Jeff, the likes of Rudy, the likes of all them man there, I mean, weren't doing their thing, Slim wouldn't be here. I mean, Kane Brown wouldn't be there, right? Mo Gillis wouldn't be there because they wouldn't have had people to have looked up to. Eddie Nesta, look at Eddie Nesta, Robert G. Wouldn't have people to look up to say, oh, look, I can do that. Do you know what I mean? Your environment is everything. It's everything. It's very, very important. Got to study. Got to study. Got to have a book. When you go in a house and people ain't got a library, and by the way, that's the other thing. Your library can't just be in your phone. The phone is brilliant. It has all the books in here. You can find them. Buy that bad boy. Buy that book, put it on the shelf. When you walk past it, you can say, as parents, put the book at the dining table, put the book in the living room. So when the kids walk past, they can see a book. Just have to see it. They might look into it. Do you see what I mean? They might just look into it. I mean, you've got to give them that exposure because the stuff that the youth them is coming across now, if you're not feeding them, somebody else is. And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. Look at this. Let's talk, by the way, about Saka. Because we're in that segment now. Subsequent history, news, views, and reviews from a black perspective. And of course, black people have to weigh into this situation without Saka, young lad from Greenford, by the way. You don't know that, right? He's from Greenford, just up the road. He's from Greenford. And he's earned his stripes. You know, I was aggrieved to hear him in the news for this level of foolishness, because, you know, they're going to put his face on the losing game. I'm trying to find it. They're going to put his face on the losing game, and he had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with it. He came on so late in the game. Let's have a look and see if we can find this. Here we go. And funny, it's not only black people that picked on it, white people picked up on it as well. It's not only white people picked up on it as well, because some of them white boys are on it. There was a video, a white guy, it was talking the same thing, but he had too many cuss words. I couldn't use it. Let me just make sure I did. Yeah. So here we are. Let's just get the story, and then we can talk the things. Here we are.
Last night, England slumped to an embarrassing defeat at Wembley to Iceland. The whole team's performance was pretty poor all around, but for some reason, the media has consistently used pictures of Saka as the face of defeat. Bukayo Saka didn't start the game for England as he is ramping up his fitness ahead of the Euro 2024 tournament, but he was subbed on with 25 minutes to play. How can it be that a player who didn't start the match, and by no means was the worst performer when he came on, be seemingly universally used as the face of defeat? BBC, The Telegraph, The Sun, and many more opted to use images of Saka for some reason. However, looking back at the BBC's post for England's World Cup opener, a game in which Saka scored 2 goals and got man of the match, a picture of Grealish was used. This seems to be a worrying theme within the media. Leave your thoughts in the comments section and share for awareness.
There you go. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. When Saka scores, they put the white face. When Saka himself scores, gets man of the match, they put the white face on him. When the team loses, it got nothing to do with the poor lad, they put his face on there. How come it's universal, though? I find that interesting. How come all of the media, like you said, the Metro, the BBC, you know, Sky, how come all of them use the same picture? I mean, it's like, is it like somebody owns all of them and says, hey, picture to use this sucker? And they all say, okay, what's that about? How does that work? Pinky, your hands up, part two.
I think it's the media, you know, they do help to perpetuate the racism. That's why I don't watch TV, which is why I don't really buy certain papers. I will buy, if I have to, I will buy The Guardian. I think that's the safest paper within the UK that, you know, reports in an objectional way rather than in a racist way. And the rest of them are just so racist. They're so racist. They've always been like that. The Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, they've all of them.
Yeah, but how come they all did it though? This is it, because remember,
because that's the media, and when you don't have, this is when we talk about power. We have nothing to do with, black people have nothing to do with the media. So we're at their beck and call. And that's how it's been for years in this country. It's the media that always perpetuated. And you watch coming up for election, they're guilty.
We're at their beck and call. As you said, Pinky, we don't have no power. And we got to stop that narrative, actually. We got to start having power.
That's systematic racism, really, when you look at it. And it's all subliminal too.
It's all subliminal, and it puts us in and under their control. So this is it's so blatant with this Saka incident. We also remember it happened with Rashford when what's the guy's name? Kane, the captain.
Harry Kane.
Yeah, he missed. He did it. And then Rashford's face is on the paper the next day. Like, what? Got nothing to do with Rashford. Rashford had a good game. What the hell? I mean, Rashford had a good game. How come his face is on there? Because they lost. And it's like a common, like, wait a minute. This is like when they talk Lisa, your hands up, systematic racism.
Well, I was at the beginning, before we started, I'm starting to feel that the newspapers are doing this intentionally. They know that it's racist, and they know that it's going to kick up a lot of fuss. I think it's to create a lot of buzz around their newspapers and to get people to buy their newspapers, go into their websites to help increase profits and help actually promote their brand. Because when something happens...
It's a racist brand.
No, but the thing is this. Is there's people still buying the newspapers, still reading it, and they're still talking about it. They're talking about it all on social media, talking it all over the place. It's a brilliant way to publicize your news, whether it's good news. They always say
good news or bad news.
Negative news is good for everybody's talking about what newspapers they've got. So they've got Guardian, they've got Daily Mail, they've got Sun, they've got Mirror, they've got all these, everybody's talking about and putting them up on social media. What a brilliant way to market their brand. But the thing about it is that nothing's done. Sometimes if you're quiet about it and you put pen to paper and you complain, make the complaint, rather than talk about it so much and mention their newspapers, it's better than talking about their newspapers. I think they know what they're doing. I think this is prodding the bear. This really is.
Who called them gangsters? Somebody said they were gangsters. No, you said the Conservative were gang, but
they're gangsters too. The media are gangsters too, because what they do, they play one against the next. I mean, they have always done this from time begun with the media. I mean, we already know that, the first, black woman for the BBC always spoke behind, she was never ever allowed to come on camera. She had to speak in the microphone. It was like, it was audio, wasn't it?
It was audio, so it was not non-visible.
So we know that the BBC. This is why I don't watch TV, because I'm not going to pay BBC license. So I don't watch TV because I don't feel, when I think back about the BBC, I don't think that they've ever been really fair representation of us as people. If you think back about our music, they have every single music that was ever made up in their, their
archives. It's the same with the black shows. They started releasing it recently. From back in the 90s, the little soap in the Caribbean shop. I forget what it's called again. They released, but before they were saying it never existed, that they'd lost it. The archives are gone. We've misplaced it. We can't find it. What's it called again?
Well, they've got the old grey whistle,
Mendoza.
but we should be calling it the black grey whistle because they've got lots of those in their archives. But
Yeah.
my thing is that, you know, I just feel the media perpetuate racism.
Well, they do, and it suits them in this country, in this
Yeah.
climate
And
where they can.
they feed it to a certain set of people who kind of like, you know, I was listening to someone talk tonight, and I was understanding some of the things that they were saying, because they're saying like now, you know, the most, you know, black people or black boys are predominantly dominating football now. And what they're saying is that you've got a lot of parents that are just pushing their children now just to football, football, football. So I
And
said,
that's
well,
expensive.
you know, you've got to remember, you've got to think there was a time when they couldn't get into football. So, like, you know, and I mean, we always dominated track and field.
There
So,
you go. A real
I
McCoy.
mean, you know, and when you think about it, you know, they always used to say, oh, you could never do swimming, but you know, we proved that wrong with certain swimmers.
You can't go by what they say. That's
you can't
go by what they say, because they'll say you can't do this, you can't do this.
Yeah. But
We can do anything and everything. You know what I mean? Real McCoy, there it was. It was a real McCoy. They used to say that it was lost. How come they're not playing that back again? They used to say it was lost. Recently,
did you not read the letter? Because that's what we wanted to do, was that everybody should write, because that's the problem that we don't do within our community.
We don't write, we don't read.
We do not complain, and we do not write. So it's very important to complain to the governing. Did you not see the
there's a letter going around, which we should post it in the chat here. So if we can find it and post it in the chat here so that it can be further broadcast. There's a letter going around for a petition to you know, the complaints body, so that our views can be heard. And we need to get more organized views in that regard.
And it would be good if everybody could just take the letter singular and basically, you know,
individuals writing in.
Yeah, as you know, because if they have a flood of letters rather than one letter with everybody's name, I was thinking one letter with everybody's name, but no, it should be individually done and just sent out.
One letter with 100 names. 100 letters makes more of a point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is what other people do. We're the only ones that don't. We complain amongst ourselves, and they know that. And that's why I say, when I said about, you know, they rely on our apathy. They rely on the fact that, you know, like even for voting, they rely on the fact that, oh yeah, they don't really vote. They rely on all of this.
So this was a documentary 12 years ago. And at the time, Mrs. Schumann was on the BBC.
Fantastic documentary that was.
And it was regarding the gun, I think it was gun crime at the time, and how black people were portrayed in the media. It was quite interesting. It looks like a different person. I mean, clearly,
community has been portrayed.
Schumann has upgraded to a Denzel character now, but he had a black moustache then. Look.
For 10 it is Sunday, the 26th of May. I'm your host, right through till 4. Welcome to the ride. I remember my then girlfriend had her graduation due, and I went along to compare, and people were like, yeah, you're good. And then the BBC made a documentary in 1986 about why I left teaching to do comedy, and I came into this very same radio studio, and one of the managing directors was in the toilet, and as I was leaving the building, she said she was listening, and she rushed out and said that, you know, I think there might be a future for you in radio. So I went not too far from where we're based here, about 3 miles down the road to White City, the radio training centre. And I then got a regular half an hour every week on a Thursday night, going through the newspapers and talking about politics. Within 9 months, Choice FM, I was doing a comedy gig at a hotel. The bosses happened to be there. Someone told them that this guy worked on radio. The rest is history. For 7 years, I was the host of their breakfast show, and 5 of those years, I hosted a Saturday show, which was the biggest in the station's history.
So this documentary with Jess Schumann, and by the way, he was talking on this about the very thing that we're seeing now. So what we're seeing with happening to Saka, that was what he was talking about 20 years ago, because Choice FM was up until what, 2004, 5? Yeah. So he was, so imagine that these newspapers and mediums have for more than 20 years been doing the same thing and have never been held to account. Nobody's held them up. I mean, and the question then becomes, who can hold? Samson's in the building, good Lord, what good to have you here. Who can hold them to it? Because as Black people, remember, this was a classic for me. Remember Stephen Lawrence, when that case came, there was so much happening then, and all of us were at home saying, how can this be? How can this be? How can this be? Right? Eventually, the News of the World shut down so many years later, and it wasn't because of Stephen Lawrence, right? It was because of the phone hacking, and there were so many other people's phones that were hacked, white people included, that the uproar came, and then Stephen's case got brought into the mix, and then it was like, oh, that's how they're doing it. They're hacking people's phones. News of the World closed down, but did Rupert Murdoch ever get held to account? Because he still owns the other news guy, he still owns the other papers and whatnot. So it makes you wonder what's really happening, right? What's really happening to Black people in that our children are watching the media that's provided by these racists, and they're condemning us to our face, telling us you can't do this, you can't do that. By the way, you people are fudge, you're this, you're that, the other. And when we're doing nothing wrong, they still put our face there like we did it all wrong. Saka's a classic example. He did nothing wrong, played a good game. And then they put his face like, well, it's his fault we lost. And it goes on and on. So how come, Jeff, you're there, how come, since your documentary so many years ago, or should I say, what can we do, you know, to improve our lot in life? Because 20 years on and it's no change.
Joe, I mean, there are a couple of things. I mean, I used to lecture on the whole thing about racism in the media. And I can remember as a young man growing up, because my father was an educated man, he used to talk about the Sun newspaper written by the rich for the ignorant. I mean, that's the language he would use. I wouldn't use that language. But the media has always had a stranglehold. This is why when the Soviet Union, when the so-called Bolsheviks, the communists came to power, the first thing they did was they controlled the media, because mass media controls your thinking. If you can think back to about if you can think back to about 7 years ago, it'd be about now, when Donald Trump was vying for the presidency and he won. The first thing he did was, and it's on the internet, he jumped into a golf cart with Rupert Murdoch, because it was rumoured that Rupert Murdoch might be selling Fox News. You see, press barons, when the whole News of the World thing exploded, which you just mentioned, Joe, remember, Rupert Murdoch isn't a politician. He controls the Times, the Sunday Times, and the Sun newspaper. The Sun's certainly the biggest publication and has been for at least 19 to 20, 25 years old. It topped the Mirror. He used to go to Downing Street, Joe, through a back door entrance,
right, to
see Cameron, to see Tony Blair, to see Gordon Brown. When Neil Kinnock was standing for the bid to be the Prime Minister in '87, I remember the Sun headline being, "When the last person to leave Britain, please put the light out." New Labour, under Peter Mandelson, the Director of Communications, they soon learned, and they knew that by being trade unionists, which goes against all the principles of the capitalists who have all the money, that they had to change their stance. So Tony Blair is then pictured, before he became Prime Minister, of reading he went to a party on a yacht owned by Rupert Murdoch, so they could see if Murdoch's titles would support their venture. The media run this country. Look at Jeremy Corbyn. When you're an honest politician and you talk about reparations should be paid to Black countries, or you talk about Israel in a particular way and who created the Israeli state, when you talk about things that go against people's interests, then people will react. So that's why in 2019, Boris Johnson won what was now referred to as the Red Wall, won so many seats because they learnt in 1964 when the Dockers, the working class people, marched for Enoch Powell, that the working class see foreigners and immigration as a big talking and tackling point. So whoever your politicians are, whoever they will toe the line to get elected. And have you noticed, talk about the media, how quiet has David Lemmy been, the Shadow Home Secretary, Shadow Foreign Secretary? Look at how quiet he's been on the struggles of Diane Abbott.
No, you're not saying what, because obviously, if David come on, let's be real. If David were to come in with the Diane Abbott situation, he knows that he'd be for the chopping block in some way. He's going to be a target.
So it tells you, Joseph, just how powerful the media are. So I listened earlier intently when people talk about the right to vote and why we vote. If you look at Diane Abbott's comments and how they were amplified by the media, what she said was absolutely correct. I can say this on a live Zoom. She talked about the level of prejudice that's faced by the Gypsy community, which is any form of prejudice is abhorrent, and also from the Jewish community. Remember one thing, Joseph, and you're a man who lives in America, so this is a really salient point. You know, Joe, living in American society and living in this society, you're in a much more stronger position to be able to tell me what the calculable behaviours are. But in the 1930s, 20s, 40s, and the 50s, because of these so-called anti-Semitic views, lots of Jewish people changed their surnames. Charles Bronson, the actor, was Charles Brzezinski. Kirk Douglas, that's not his real name. They're alone. Now, what I'm saying is, if you are, as people were, anti-Semitic or are, and you've got a view about about Jewish global conspiracies, whatever it may or may not be, and I don't accept a lot of the so-called glitterati nonsense. But anyway, that's not an issue. What I'm saying, Joe, is, but when you are black, if someone dislikes you for the colour of your skin, you haven't got to open your mouth. They don't like you because you're visible. You're a visible target. Now, when Diane Abbott tried to address that, as soon as the press got hold of it, they spun the narrative. And then what's really sad, Joe, is because of the power of the media, Abbott then has to backtrack. I didn't mean it like that. No, she did mean it like that.
I know.
But because of the power of the media, but Joseph, because of the power of the media, we're I mean, here's the one thing, Joe. This is one thing, Joe.
Kevin Hart, remember Kevin Hart said about the gay LGBT said something. He had to backtrack.
You have to, Joseph. Sometimes, in some respects, Joe, you should backtrack and think about and check yourself before you wreck yourself.
You can't say nothing about the Jews, though. You can't say nothing about the Jews.
Okay.
Anything you say about the Jews, like that Israel, what's going on over there now, right? Anything you say about the Jews, you're anti-Semitic, you're this, you're that, you're the other. You, and they're killing everybody.
But Joe, but Joe, you've got to look at the power, Joe. The power of the people who are able to control these stories. And there's a documentary you should all watch. It's on YouTube. It's called How the Jews Created Hollywood. It's a very good documentary. Brilliant.
How the Jews created Hollywood.
How the Jews, yeah. Because Hollywood is controlled by people who come from that background. But very quickly, Joe, the point is, Joe,
West.
Joe, this is the point, Joe. One of the most disgusting use of public money, in my opinion, Joe, is the BBC channel called One Extra. This is me as Jeff Schumann telling you my thoughts. Right. Because, Joe, they will play music, Joe, the cocky and the P tunes constantly to feed our young people's minds. And we pay for it. And we're if it's a commercial station, you can't stop it. But we pay the license fee. So we should be able to demonstrate, Joe, right to these people and say, look, you know, this level of psychological terrorism you're thrust upon us, and they will allow it, Joe. You know why they allow it, Joe? Because it stops people like you, Joe, from coming through. It stops people like you, Joe, from having sensible, reasonable debate. You're a father, you're a parent like me. They want our young people, Joe. That General Levy video that's floating around right now is absolutely brilliant. And I will send it to you after this, Joe. It's absolutely brilliant, Joe, of what General Levy has to say about the music industry right now. One of my great friends, and I love him dearly, is Omar, because I love what he represents. I love Akala, I love what they represent. I love what you represent, Joe. But you will never, Joe, and all the people in this group, you will never be given the platform, Joe, to express proper truth and rights, Joe. Because when you come to school, Joe, you will see the poison and how our children are behaving with their phones and the imagery that they're subjected to.
Yeah, that's my point. The phones. Oh my God. We've had conversations on here regarding the use of the mobile phone and what the youths. are getting away. What's happening? How teachers have no control of the children now. And the children are on these phones and the stuff that's going in their mind, hence the madness that you see how the children are behaving. And as parents, in some cases, parents are literally powerless because we've seen it. The parent takes away the phone, the child broke up the house. The child broke up the house. Like, come on, seriously? I mean, the phone is more the parent than the parent is. The parent is like a lodger in their own home, whilst this phone is just running amok with these kids dead on it. Parents, cut the internet. Cut it off.
Joseph, when I arrived at Choice FM, they told me that black people are only interested in two things, race and relationships. You know, you want to get a black woman on fire, I would talk about her hair or the hair issue or talk about black men with white women. This is what they used to say to me.
Yeah.
And I argued with them, Joe, that it depends on how you pitch the politics. So for 5 years, Joe, on a music radio station, the biggest show in that station's history was on a Saturday morning when the black community had an hour and 15 minutes to talk. No. 2 tons of fun was a breakfast show. That was just nonsense. I did that as a way of staying on the air. But the Saturday show, where we could talk the things and talk seriously, Joe, was the biggest show ever known on so-called black legal radio. When white people bought the radio station, Joe, what's the first thing they did? No, forget about attacking me. Forget about me. They removed the talk show.
Yeah, immediately. I've seen it. I saw it in America. Whilst I was in America, BET had the BET Nightly News. They had BET Nightly News with Jack. I can remember it clear as day. And then followed by Ed Norton, I think his name was, and he would break down the news in a bit more depth. As soon as that was sold off to Viacom, the first thing that went was the news. I was in shock. I was like, I remember I used to watch the white news, and now I'm switching to black news. Let me hear what Jackie Reed's going to tell us. Let me hear what Ed Norton's. First thing that was gone. And then I was like, there's no uproar. Nobody said anything. There was no, so when you're talking about choice, it disappeared and there's no uproar. People are like, you know what I mean? People just drift and there's no, and I'm like, how can they do, in my mind, I'm thinking, how can, and then I'm realizing, because they can, Alicia, your hand is up, type things. They can, and they do. And people are misled by the foolishness. And then you can't even tell them. People will argue with you, Jeff. You try and point it out, then people argue with you. Say, you don't know what you're talking about. Now things have always been how they are. No, it's fine. There's other stations you go to. They'll argue with you. It's a crazy world. And that's the power of, as you say, the media. But we're powerful people. We can take back our power by, we got to just control the things that we take into our mind, the things that we allow to come. Here on our platform, by the way, Shams and Giggles, history, news, views, and reviews from a black perspective. We filter through the news. On a Monday, we have a board meeting. We discuss the news that's current at the time. By Friday, I kid you not, so much other stuff has come on that the stuff we were talking about on Monday to talk about on Friday, more or less is out the window. Because, and it pretty much every week, there's something, and what it is, and that's the brainwash, we can see it. What the media does, they'll throw something in the mix about black people they know it's gonna upset black people. So Alicia, like you just said, is deliberate. They know it's gonna, so what that then does, it gets us talking about that thing. And then when that happens week on week on week on week, what really is going on is they now have us talking about what they want. So forget about talking about the positive things like, the girl who's a doctor at 14. And as you say, Jeff, there's so many others. That kind of news doesn't even come through. What comes through is this issue here, where Saka is he's just being abused. It's just abuse.
The major one was they did last year or 2 years ago. It comes as no surprise is when the Raheem Sterling one about his father who was murdered in Jamaica, and Raheem bought a nicer pad, and then there was a young footballer from Manchester City who bought a pad, and then the way the comparison of how the stories were shown. We've known for a very long time, not saying, again, let me rephrase this, Joseph. Some people have known for a very long time how dangerous the media is and the reasons why it is done to keep people fearful. When you put all the so-called visible minorities together, Joe, we're still less than 5% of the population. You have people walking around because of the stories that they're white people walking around because of the stories that they're fed. They believe there are more black people in this country than there are white people. That's point number one. In my lifetime, Joe, you talk about action and power. You know, I would love to see, Joe, rather than just, and it is very important, these are very important subjects, rather than just seeing us march about gun and knife crime and deaths in custody,
right?
I would love, Joe, I would love, Joe, for a group of people to march to the BBC, to One Extra or to Capital Extra and say, enough is enough. Stop feeding our people these awful narratives. Do you know why, Joe, it will never happen? It's a bit like Eminem, Joe. If Eminem had talked about the Jews, he would never be allowed to get, he wouldn't even have a recording contract. Because he talked such negative things about black women and got away with it, Joe, because our very own black men, because of our own conditioning, use the same language. So whose language are we using, Joe? And at whose starting point, at whose reference? If you come to live with me, Joe, with your partner, and you sign up to my GP, before my GP can prescribe you any medication, my doctor, he or she, needs to know your what? Your medical what? Your history. And our history is very tortured, Joe. So when you say things, Joe, like on this platform, you try to tell people and they're not listening to you. Well, why should they listen to you, Joe? Who are you? You're not feeding me, Joe. Who are you to come in my life and tell me how I should? Even though, Joe, you know I've got enough respect for you, Joe. That's why
you're right.
But Joe, but always allow, Joe, their education, Joe, has been fed to them in such a very poor way. The same way the white working class have been fed that we are the enemies, we are the foreigners, we are taking their jobs. The people who control the press in this country, Joe, control the thoughts of lots of people. So when I tell people about Champs and Giggles, Joe, the response I'll get, Joe, is, boy, it's more like, is it music based? What is it? What do they do? Is it a drinking thing? I don't criticize my friends for that behavior, Joe, because I've had the benefit of furthering my education. And I'm proud of that. And if I can share it in different ways, Joe, but I never lecture nobody, Joe. But I love you, Joe. I say it publicly on this forum. I love you. And no one can come to me and no one. It's been tried in the past. Don't bring that rubbish to me, or I'll go back and I'll tell Joe. Don't bring it to me. When I see you doing what Smiley and the rest of them are doing, when I see you doing something constructive, then you can tell me something. But you carry on. I don't like the term baby mother, Joe. I hate it, and I don't use it. You can't say the mother of my children, but that's my choice. Smiley's known me, Keith has known me in a different capacity for years. And Keith can tell you if I'm genuine in my stance or if I'm insincere. But Joe, it is heartbreaking, Joe. If you and Keith or anyone on this panel came and spent an hour in a school and see, especially in pupil referral units, which are like black Sunday schools, you will see how the education system is making our children educationally retarded. It's absolutely, that's why I'm saying, Joe, you, Keith, and any other person on this panel, if you want to come in there, we should be marching to One Extra. But again, if we do that, Joseph, the first thing that's going to happen is man who's making money from it. Or, who's this Joseph? Who are these people coming here and tell me what we should be doing and whatever? Joe, there's a really awful video of our people at some sort of carnival, whatever, where our women have got absolutely no clothes on, Joe. Their legs wide open. All I put on Facebook was, and we wonder why people laugh at us, just to see, Joe, the reaction. You know
that you can't say that. Smiley, you got your hand up. Come in, start the thing. Hold on, Samson. Wow, had this talk earlier. About grandchildren. No, our grandchildren are going to be lost in all this BS. This is what's happening. But we have to be awake. Some of us have to be awake. Smiley, start the things.
Yeah, I totally get what Denzel said. He's absolutely right, and what we've been discussing already. But the thing is with Saka and the media, I do think it's a numbers thing. I think that they purely do this for a numbers game to sell newspapers, to portray our black young professionals in a bad light. Yeah. You know, and the way that they keep doing it, it just shows you that their momentum is growing with the nonsense, because we're talking about it now. So you can imagine, as you said, other other newspapers and columnists and TikTok and YouTube, they're all going to be talking about, Saka played awful, Saka this, Saka that. But as you say, he's only came on a short period of time. You got Harry Kane as the captain. You got all the other players that played 90 minutes, but yet still they pick on Saka. So for me, I think that the media knows what they're doing, and as I think it was Osset said that they all get the media, they all get the press release from a certain media, and they all run with it. So if one gets away with it, they'll all do it, and they'll keep on doing it. So we do have to speak about it, and I'm hoping that more of us will talk about it. Ian Wright spoke about it, and he spoke about it clearly, to say that he's disgusted with it. And then some of the newspapers, I think it was the Sun or the Mirror editor, said, we do have to monitor how we portray
after they've put it out there,
after the horses bolted. Saying it.
You know what I mean?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. So to me, that's just nonsense. It'll still be the same, but I think the more and more that we talk about these things, I think it will eventually get there. But as Jeff said, from putting on a march, I think, Denzel, on our show, I think that's going to be difficult, because I don't think the black community that they haven't got that mindset. If you say we're going to march, and won't do it, and that is poor for us. And I think it's a mindset conditioning, as he said.
I think the conditioning.
Doesn't it show you just how far we need to go?
I disagree with that.
Hold on, let's go one at a time. Jeff, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah.
No, sorry, let Pinky talk. Sorry.
You got a point. So
I've had my say. Sorry.
Sorry, Pinky.
Sorry.
Like Keith is saying, it's the mindset, right? I agree with Keith, because the conditioning that's happening, most people aren't awake, and they allow the foolishness to keep coming in to their minds, and therefore they're not willing to take a day off work and go and march.
No, people
to do that.
No.
Well, look at what happened with Diane Abbott. How many people showed up over there in and she's loved over there. A few people.
Quite a lot of people did show up for her. Quite a lot of people did show up for her. A lot of women showed up for her.
Yeah, it was a handful of people.
No, I think we can organise and march.
I like the positive.
We do that. We do that for reparations. We've done. They do the down to Parliament march. We did a march. We organised ourselves when it was Smiley Culture.
Pinky, but
when Smiley.
Go on, Pinks.
I was going to say, when Smiley, when they had the incident with Smiley, that was a big march that was organised from South London right down.
And they said, Pinky, it was because the police apparently killed him, Pinky. Also, Pinky, when it comes to Diana, but again, it's about a political position about why should a black person be stopped from actively being involved in the electoral process. This is about, Pinky, saying that, well, because remember, Pinky, not everyone has to agree. Some people are quite content that, there's nothing wrong with grime, and there's nothing wrong with drill music. There are people who genuinely believe that. Genuinely. Hopefully when Joseph shares the General Levy video, which I think is absolutely fantastic, then maybe we'll get a sense of reasoning. But you've got to remember, Pinky, and I've met you, so I know you and I love you. The reality is, Pinky, not everyone thinks on the same level as you. So when we talk about organising a march, let me tell you something now. I'll be the first person standing right behind Joseph. But I tell you what, as it gets hotter and warmer, I'll be saying, hey, Joe, listen, we need to go for a little walk, man, because that man over there look like they're prepared to kill us. Literally, we will get killed by those who want to defend their right, their freedom of speech, to sing about some of the most vulgar types of misogyny. Braggarts about killing each other. You know how the police are catching a lot of these young people now? By social media, Joe. By social media, Pinky. They're looking at these posts. When I interviewed the former head of the police force, Cressida Dick, he actually says in the video of my Dispatches special, she says that we're dealing with a number of poorly educated, She uses the term, and she's right. Poorly educated, angry young people. So my point was, poorly educated, in whose education
system
are we learning from? We're going against every single thing that I could write a play about Joe's life story tomorrow, but you know what the first thing they're going to say to me? Well, did he rape anybody? Has he killed anybody? Has he shot anybody? Oh, wait, here's the punchline. Well, what kind of a black story is that then? All these programs we've seen on Channel 4 and ITV, these dramas, if you notice one thing, they have one common theme in thread. They show black people as highly dysfunctional, highly argumentative, highly critical. And when someone comes along and wants to talk about something different, so when Joe mentioned about plays or whatever, these people and these theatres, if they don't think it will sell, they're not interested, because black dysfunctionalism is the height of us being urbanized. Being, you can't anywhere in this world, not just ostracized. There's nowhere on this planet called urban land. Yet we're described as urban people. All urban simply means that other cultures can come in, appropriate what we do, teeth it, and good day.
Do whatever.
Okay.
But it's so important in all of that, right? Because we can do it. Everything, money talks, absolutely, right? There's got to be some money in. But we're creative people. We need to do more of figuring out things that work for our communities, and then how to inject some sort of money, some sort of financing into that, to get more people interested. Because nobody's interested in Brock. Nobody's interested in Brock. So we got to figure out more ingenious ways. Because oftentimes, you've said to yourself, Jeff, you know, like the footballs and whatnot, they make all the money and they end up with it into a different race. We got to figure out ways that we can get money into like in America, black people invest in black people. They invest. There's communities. They invest. They're buying up properties. They're investing in themselves. There's a narrative over there.
But Joe, that's because they have a mindset of scholars who have come through. That's why
there's a narrative. That's what it is. It's the narrative. It's that conversation. It's that narrative. But here, we're not allowed. You know, I hate to put it like that. We're not allowed, because for the very things that you've been saying, Jeff, if we start having that narrative in some way, somehow, they shut you down. So as you said, Choice FM, there was a narrative, it was a good narrative, everybody was listening, they shut you down. You know, it took years to get that platform up. Alicia, your hand's been up for a long time. Let me just come and talk to things. Your hand's been up for a long time. You've been there for a long time, I'm sorry. But it took years for that narrative with Choice FM to get there, and they shut it down. And like, the recovery process is huge. Alicia, go on, talk to things.
Denzel's correct about the dysfunction, and that the community loves dysfunction. And there's a lot of dysfunction online, a lot of dysfunction in the music, a lot of dysfunction just generally. And when we see, as a community, when we see dysfunction and things that are negative, it becomes like a great subject matter to talk about. And we forget about what's really important. You see, the thing is that I believe that we've created almost a monster for ourselves, because the music is so vile and destructive, yet it's pushed and musicians can make money from it. So there's never going to be an end. It's almost like, deliver this real vile music and you'll get paid for it, and we'll market it. You do what we do and you do what we say. Now,
who's paying us is not the people that look like us.
No, people. No, I'm talking about the people who buy the music. That's what it's being marketed to them to purchase it. As long as as well as the TV shows and the radio shows, etc. It's pushed. I'll tell you another thing which is really interesting as well. You know, sometimes you might go into like shops and just general communal places, and there's music playing, and they'll always play music, but they don't mind leaving out the N-word bit of that music. they've normalized the disgusting.
Are you talking about when you go clothes shopping?
Not just shopping, just generally,
like in a sports shop and all the rest of it. Because I've noticed sometimes you go in there and the vulgar music, they're playing it.
The music's playing, yeah. And you're like, why on earth are they playing it? I mean, it's so easy for them to play it. And this is the thing, when you go back to the kids going to school and what they're being taught, and going back to what, the number of teachers who are leaving the profession.
Yeah.
With a net at the moment of 400, like there's been a 44,000 teachers join, but 43,522 teachers have left the profession. So we are the children. I really do feel sorry for the teachers right now, and I really feel sorry for those parents who are putting their children through school, because these teachers have had enough.
Yeah, of course, it's the whole mix. You feel sorry for the teachers, feel sorry for the students, and the parents as well. The whole mix is like, I mean, as a parent, what can you do? You'll send your child to school to get an education, as Jeff is saying, and Jeff, he's a teacher, former teacher, should I say? So he knows really what's going on in there. So when he's saying that the vulgar, the vulgarity, the nonsense, the madness that they're teaching the kids, he knows from experience. As a parent, you're lost, aren't you? Because you think you're sending your child to school to get an education. So you're lost. And then the poor child doesn't know any better. He's going to school thinking, well, parents have sent me to get an education. Here's the education I'm getting, so let me learn. And they're learning madness. And then the poor teachers that are good see what's happening. They're like, oh, I can't do this. This goes against my conscience. So they quit. And then it's just some other teacher that comes in. So the children, they don't get that consistency of, because when I was at school, I remember the teachers seemed to hang around for a while longer. So you had the same teacher throughout year 1, 2, 3. You had the same teacher. You got to know them. They got to know. My teacher, I remember Mr. Shorts literally told me off. My attitude was getting a bit off key. And, I didn't even realize. I realized it now. My dad had done. I was in the second year. So by the time I got into the third, fourth year, I just didn't care. I do. And I remember Shortsy, he literally told me off, what are you doing? You can do much better. And he went off on me. It helped a little bit. It helped a little bit. But because he knew me, he could have that conversation, right? There was another, Mr. Freed as well had that conversation. And he provided literal help. Because they know you. But when these teachers keep changing, they can't know the students, can they? So then it's just like ships passing in the school corridor, and they can't really get to teach the children because they don't know what's going on beneath. And so the children are just falling out. And then you get this madness we've spoken about before where, I don't want to mention it. Keith, your hand is up. But the children
I think it's more continuity. Yeah, the continuity that the children don't have with the teachers, and they don't feel that they're connected as they should be with the teachers. Because some teachers are awful to children and they don't respect the kids, but equally the kids don't respect the teachers. So it's a difficult one, and I know there are children now, and there is some good black young children that want to study and want to learn, and they're now elevating themselves because they know education is key. And that is where you got it. That's your trajectory path. Because back in my days, it was a different story because it was an all-boys school, and what it was is when you're getting out, it's either having fights or kicking ball, or making up a sound system and DJ. You know what I mean? Because that was the run-ins in them days. And it's only later in life you think, my goodness, I need to run with my education, and that's what, unfortunately, that's what happened. Is that when I was going to leave school, my education wasn't very good. So what I did, I signed up and went to college, went to Paddington College, and then took my exams there, did very well. And then I thought, do you know what? Let me go on and do television and video repairs. And that's what I did. And then I worked for DER. So, and then I now instill that in my kids. So they won't have the same skill set as what I went through and what shallow bits I did. It's pure elevated. And that's what they've done. And I want them to instill that in their kids. So it's a...
And it goes on, isn't it? It's that cycle that you create because you get the understanding. Same me when I was at school, school, but when you leave school, you realize, oh my goodness, you realize study's just so important. It's important for everything. And of course we're talking now, we're on the radio, we got, multiple different radio stations. It's a black narrative. We've got to get that communication across through the wives, through the parents, through the adults. We can't just be playing music. Music's good. It has its place. We love it. We love the little revive. We love the little, the soca. We love all the music, the good music. We know our them digga, like what Jeff was just mentioned. We love the good music. We love it. Music, it has its place. But the education is so important, and our kids, because that's the next generation. Sunak said something good. He said that his third generation, his parents came to the country as immigrants, his third generation, and here he is as prime minister. So when you think about it, your parents, then your generation, then your kids, so somewhere along the line, somebody's going to jump out and become amazing, just amazing. It might not be, me, it might not be, it might be my son, or it might be his son. But someone's got to start instilling that. Study. It's in the book. It's in the book. Even if I can't read, I'm gonna buy the book. I'm gonna put it on the shelf. Even if I can't read, I'm gonna buy the book and give it to you. Do you know what I mean? We as parents, we can't say I didn't have. We can just buy the book, give it to them, and get them reading. They will pick up something in that book. They will pick it up, and they will go on to succeed far more. I told Mikey, don't let me be the benchmark. You springboard off me and you have to go higher. You can't be no digger. No, you can't be doing that. You have to go higher. I put big numbers in front of them. You have to go higher. But it has to be a conversation in the community. If the community as a whole isn't having that conversation, my kid goes to school, he back up with some of them youth there, and then them youth there's talking foolishness so that the good sense that I'm trying to give him, them other youths there is just taking it out of his brain. But if them youths are getting the same from their parents, and them youths there will develop their little posse, and it'll be a posse of sense. Where's Colour Queen? Because that's what she was telling us happening with her boys. Dion, your hand has been up for a long time. Come in, part of the thing. Supreme Doctor is in the building. Lord have mercy. The conversation is good. Part of the things. Dion, where you there?
Yeah, it's just a quickie, Joe. I used to be a therapist in school for about 15 years. And what I would say about teachers, there is good and bad with the teachers, but they're very cliquey. And if you're not a parent that is on top of everything with your child, yes, then the teachers take the mick, basically. Yeah, they know what they can get away with. They know which families, which kids they can get away with certain things, which families don't care enough, which families won't do certain things, and they take liberties with your child. If you're not on top of it, if you're not a person that write emails, if you're not a person that complains via email and show your face at parents' evening and all those things, teachers knows which child to target. And
as
also,
the saying goes, don't know who to go after.
Yes.
Yoland is in the building.
They set our children up to fail on purpose. I saw some behaviors in schools that I was like, it was shocking, like shouting at our children, all sort of things that they wouldn't be able to get away with, but they get away with it because they're in school, because teachers are quite cliquey, so they protect each other. Do you understand? So that's one of the things that we need to know about schools as well. And for parents not to be scared of the institution, because a lot of parents are scared of the institution and think that they can't confront teachers and think they can't complain and do things. They just go with whatever the teacher's saying. No, they can stand up to the teachers, but a lot of parents do not do that, and they need to do more.
Thanks for your input there, Dude. And that point, Parents show up to the school. It's so important. Make a phone call. So important. Spin Doctor, your last word. We got literally minutes left. Just a minute. Come in, talk the things.
Yeah, well, you've touched on so many different topics in the short time that I've just come on. But while I'm here, I want to hail up I'm from Tottenham
every week.
Yeah, I want to hail up a youngster in Tottenham by the name of Joshua Beckford. And he's from the age of 8-9 years old. He smashed it in Oxford, and they've actually got him down as the most intelligent person in the world because he's got a high HQ. But one of the things I want to mention
Big up Joshua Beckford.
Yeah, one of the
hold on, Spin Doctor. Shamps and Giggles radio listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll be here again. You can tune in on YouTube and all the channels. But for us this week, it's good night. Hey.